First of all, I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room.
I'm going to turn now to that new charge for the so-called doomsday mom, Lori Vallow. Already charged in the killing of her 2 children, she is now being indicted for conspiracy to commit murder.
A violation of Penal Code Section 187 Prene, murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Hello, 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 all my beautiful people, and welcome back to True Crime Headlines. This is week 37 of 2021, and it has been a crazy true crime week. I mean, sort of insane. There's been a lot of buzz on social media, a lot of different big cases that we're going to get into. But first, if you'd like to support this brand new show, please make sure to subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALAMAHAWK Media. Not only will you get early and ad-free episodes of True Crime Headlines, but you'll also get a ton of extra content from our sister show, Paradise After Dark podcast. We also have a spin-off called Analyze This, and then we do an off-topic and uncut, and you're just going to have thousands of hours worth of content if you sign up. So I actually, there's so much going on this week, I had to bring in a friend. I did. I had to bring in some help. I can't do this on my own. So I'd really like to introduce my listeners to Nigel Kent.
Well, hi, everybody. And hey, Lauren, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for helping me out with this crazy week.
You bet.
So, Nigel, do you want to introduce yourself and tell my listeners a little bit about what you do? And
sure.
Because you have your own show.
I do.
2 shows.
I do. I have a new podcast called Big Tech Watchdog, which keeps an eye on the really, really out of control censorship problem that we have here in our great nation. Big Tech Watchdog, that's pretty much everywhere. Any podcatcher can catch that one. And then Trouble in Paradise, which has an overlapping name with your podcast.
I know.
But Trouble in Paradise is my show with Jasmine Starr, and it basically is just a goofy, conspiracy theory ridden, we talk about UFOs and crazy government conspiracies and all this kind of paranoid type stuff. But I can be reached at Nigel Kent 239 on Twitter and at Tipcast 239 on Twitter. That's for Trouble in Paradise. But I'm super happy to be talking true crime headlines with you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm super happy you're here because, I have so much that we're going to cover tonight. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Well, you know what we used to say in my household growing up? Ladies first.
All right, because I'm going to, come out of the gate right now, stop the presses. Has Maura Murray been found? And I know this it actually sort of blows my mind, Nigel, because before we started recording, I asked you if you knew about Maura Murray, and you don't, which is insanity to me.
Well, since you invited me on, I've been trying to avoid all things true crime just to make sure I can still have a reaction to this.
Okay. Well, this comes from Inside Edition, and this was from Tuesday, September 14th. Cold case of missing woman Maura Murray gets new hope with bones discovered in New Hampshire. I'm going to tell you my own experience with the Maura Murray case because I've been really kind of following this. I want to say over 10 years I have been following the Maura Murray case. The very first podcast that I ever listened to was Missing Maura Murray by Tim and Lance. Shout out to Tim and Lance.
Tim and Lance, I don't know who you are, but shout out. They don't know who I am either.
They have a podcast called Missing Maura Murray, and I devoured it. And that's how I actually got into podcasts, because I was so interested in the Maura Murray case that I found this podcast, and I didn't even ever listen to podcasts, and started listening to that one. Then I found some other ones, and then I'm like, hey, I could do this. And now look at me. I have.
It's such a great pastime, though. Not to sidetrack, but podcasting is this hidden thing that very few people know about that is freaking awesome.
Yeah, it is. I love it. So, just a brief overview. Maura Murray was 21 and acting strangely before she mysteriously disappeared, but her family said they knew none of this until it was too late. On the day she went missing, February 9th of 2004, Maura emailed her boss and college professors at the University of Massachusetts Amherst saying that there was a death in her family and she was taking a leave of absence, but there had been no death in her family. Relatives would later tell police. She researched cabins in New Hampshire's White Mountains, packed her school books, clothes, toiletries, and makeup in her car, and likely headed for Interstate 91. She stopped at an ATM and purchased booze from an off-campus liquor store, according to surveillance video. So that night, Maura crashed her car into a snowbank. She told a neighbor she was fine. She told a passing motorist the same. When police arrived at the scene, Maura Murray was gone. Since then, her case has traveled several hairpin turns and dark, lonely highways, none of which led to Maura, who would be 39 today. The newest bump occurred Monday of this week when New Hampshire State Police announced bone fragments had been discovered at a construction site near Loon Mountain, a remote skiing and hiking resort 25 miles from where Maura hit a tree in Haverhill. A search of the area has been conducted, an investigation is ongoing, and diagnostic testing is pending to determine age and possible sex of the bone fragments, the state police said in a statement, noting the medical examiner, Lincoln Police Department officers, and the U.S. Forestry Service were aiding in the recovery effort. Maura's family, who have steadfastly searched for her and advocated for the missing, asked for privacy on Monday. My family is aware of the recent discovery of bone fragments near Loon Mountain, and we ask that the public not interfere with the investigation, Murray's sister Julie said. If these bone fragments belong to a human, they deserve to be correctly identified, their relatives probably notified, and cause of death determined. I have reached out to law enforcement for additional details, and I am awaiting their response, she said. The strange saga of Maura's case has been chronicled by podcasts and dozens of media stories, news magazine, including 2020 and an Oxygen expose. In each case, members of her family continue to ask for the public's help. Her disappearance became an obsession for some. True crime writer James Renner conducted a lengthy podcast series on the case and then wrote a book, True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray.
Good Cleveland guy, James Renner.
Which I actually read that book twice. That's kind of how obsessed I've been with the Maura Murray case. But Renner's speculation is that Maura ran away to establish a new life. Her father said he believes she was abducted. Others adhere to the Occam's razor approach, that Maura, dazed from the collision, tried to distance herself from her car, which contained $40 worth of wine and liquor, and wait for authorities to leave. But the terrain is desolate and dark and would have been easy for her to become lost and die from exposure on that cold February night in New Hampshire. So, in a completely different article on that same matter, this is gut-wrenching. Family of woman missing 17 years waits for tests on bone fragments found in New Hampshire. This comes from CBS Boston.
I was going to say, they're getting closer to solving some crime. It might not be Maura Murray, but that those bones belong to somebody.
Right, exactly. So Maura Murray's sister Julie, again, said they've known about the discovery for a little more than a week, adding that the bones were found at a construction site on Loon Mountain. My family has experienced these types of situations before, but this one feels a little bit different because of the proximity to where Maura's car was found. Maura had been to Loon Mountain before, according to her sister, and was familiar with the area. Julie Murray also said some people there were questioned by officers early in the investigation. The bone fragments that were found are, quote, pretty small, and because investigators don't have much to work with, identifying them could take anywhere from 2 to several months.
Makes you wonder what pretty small is.
Well, this is gut-wrenching. This is really, really hard, Julie told WBZ. We haven't had any physical evidence discovered in relation to my sister's case, so this could be very huge. I just want the investigation to go well so that if it truly is Maura, the people that are responsible can be brought to justice. So, yes, you said little tiny pieces, right? So, as we know, the news is fluid, changing every single day. So,
and sometimes it has a tendency to under-report or be a little bit vague with reason.
So, what I've been doing, testing different things, different ways to do this, but today, and I found the most up-to-date article as of this recording from Washington Today News. The family of missing woman from 2004 is awaiting the results of DNA tests on remains discovered in New Hampshire. Now, they're saying, according to state police, human bone parts were uncovered at a construction site near Loon Mountain in New Hampshire. The bone pieces were discovered while workmen were digging at the site, and the fragments are still being tested for diagnostic purposes. According to a statement made by New Hampshire State Police, the test will determine the age and likely the sex of the bone pieces.
Why would you, like, if you were planning on disappearing yourself, would you go and buy booze before you went and did it?
I don't know.
I mean, I've never tried to disappear myself, but, you know, unless you were going to
We actually just had a long conversation about that on Paradise After Dark, the episode that's going to be coming out this coming Monday, about disappearing yourself. Mm-hmm. But just give me one more paragraph here. A team there digging some electrical wires uncovered what they think to be human remains a little over a week ago doing construction on the mountain. They alerted the authorities, and it turned out to be a human skull. So we went, as I'm saying, the news is so fluid, we went from little tiny bone fragments
to a skull.
Now it's a skull.
That's a pretty big detail to kind of like, well, it's fragments. Well, it's actually a skull.
This news article actually came out like 44 minutes before we started recording this. So I'm just trying to get the most up to date. As usual, the links to all of these news articles will be in the show notes.
Maybe there were fragments and a skull. Maybe. And I know there was some serious theories about 3 guys that worked at the Loon Mountain ski resort who did not show up for work that night, who would have passed that road where she had her accident. So they call them the Loon Mountain 3. There was some definite theories that maybe they had picked her up or something. So there was some out-of-character behavior among these 3 guys.
Right.
That corresponds with the date of her disappearance.
Right.
Or the evening of her disappearance.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
So, what's the latest on that? The latest is it's a skull.
The latest is it's a skull. They said that it could take 2 to several months.
Does the skull have teeth?
I don't know.
Because that could be the thing that is able to affirmatively prove, right? Dental records.
Right. I don't know.
Well,
I would like to know.
I would like to know, too. I have a feeling that they're going to get closer. And again, if it's not Maura Murray, it's somebody.
Yeah.
And there's probably another crime to be solved.
Right.
Or maybe they find out it's some prehistoric,
Well, and what makes me wonder is that these construction workers, it mentioned a couple times that they were digging. So it makes me wonder if she had been buried. Mm-hmm. I mean, and maybe that's why she hasn't been found all these years. I mean, there's been insane amount of very extensive searches.
I wonder how many people just go down the ski slopes, wipe out, and get left for dead. Oh. That's got to happen every now and again. I mean,
maybe. I don't know.
I don't know too many solo downhill skiers, but probably not a good thing to do by yourself. So, interestingly, that story kind of leads into the story that I brought. Which is the story of 14-year-old Aliyah Ramirez. Have you heard much about Aliyah?
I have not.
Okay. Well, in order to properly tell the story, and this one does have a Florida connection, but in order to tell the story, you have to go all the way back to April of 2021, this year.
Okay.
And this is from WNDU. As the search continues for missing 14-year-old Aliyah Ramirez, a new video shows the last moments the Syracuse, Indiana teen was seen before her disappearance. Her ballet instructor, who, by the way, seems to be the person from Indiana speaking the most about the story, Haley Toy, obtained the video from a neighbor who lives in the same complex as Ramirez and agreed to share the video with 16 News. Quote, "We just want to see her get home safely. If she ran away, if someone took her, just let her get home safely," Toy said. The last images of Aliyah were taken from a Ring doorbell 8 days ago, just after 8 a.m., and this was written back in May. So the date of the video was April 27th.
Okay.
Aliyah can be seen leaving her Syracuse home wearing a black jacket, gray and white sweatpants, and a purple Nike backpack. Quote, "Tuesday morning, she was getting ready to go to school, and we know that she did not get on the bus," Toy says. Toy says the walk from Aliyah's home is just a few blocks away from the bus stop. Quote, "The walk from her bus stop's not long. It's like maybe 5 minutes." So it's a walk that Toy believes was the last one Aliyah took before she went missing. And this is in broad daylight in the morning, before school. Quote, "She is young. She's so young, and the idea she's going through all of this right now, and that she might not be safe, we just don't know what is happening," Toy said. Toy also said if she could talk to Aliyah, she would reassure how much she is loved by so many in her community. Quote, "Hang in there. You're such a tough kid. People care about you. People love you, and we're going to get you home." Now, Syracuse, Indiana police say Aliyah could be anywhere, including Marion, Indiana, Georgia, or Palm Beach County, Florida.
Why would they come to those places?
Exactly. So there's a lot more to the story in terms of what they were able to learn about Aliyah and her family connections versus what the news organization was willing or able to report, or if they were cooperating with enforcement authorities, as we often see. They kind of are leaving things vague on purpose. But as it turns out, there's a little more to the story. In a follow-up story from WPTV, it says officials in Syracuse, Indiana, are searching for a missing teen they say has been missing for a week and maybe in Palm Beach County. So right off the rip, they're focusing on the east coast of Florida. Aliyah Ramirez, 14, was last seen on April 27th at 8:01 a.m. She is described as 5'9", weighing 138 pounds. That's pretty tall for a 14-year-old girl, isn't it?
Yeah, that is pretty tall.
I mean, that's tall for a lady,
yeah.
Period, 5'9". Officials said she was last seen wearing a black zip-up jacket, gray and white sweatpants. Aliyah may be heading to Marion, Indiana, or Palm Beach County. And then they reiterate the quote from the ballet teacher, Haley Toy. Now, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office told this news source, WPTV, that as of a week after the disappearance, Palm Beach County deputies went to the teen's relative's home. Apparently there's a relative's home in Palm Beach County, but Aliyah was not there. And at that point, somebody set up a public discussion group on Facebook to help find her. And police said in an alert that she's believed to be in danger. Obviously, young lady goes missing. You have to assume that
exactly.
There's bad things afoot.
Yeah, 14-year-olds don't just vanish into thin air. Somebody is helping her or somebody has taken her, I'm assuming. I do not know the outcome of this story. So...
Yeah, well, I think kids in general, especially teenagers, they tend to seek security. They tend to seek belonging. And I certainly don't understand Aliyah's psychology necessarily, but I know how my kids were when they were teenagers. And
I have a 17-year-old, so...
They tend to basically view the world in terms of how it's going to affect them. And so they want to be secure. They want to be in a stable place so that they can act out, knowing that they can always return to that stable place.
Yes, you are right on the money with that as far as my experience with kids.
Yeah, I met a teenager today who was struggling with her mom right in front of me. Long story, and I won't go into where this happened, but teenagers going teenager is the bottom line there. And
yeah.
I think we all went through it, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
So now I didn't disappear and run away or get abducted or anything like that. But the interesting thing about Aliyah Ramirez is that she managed to, let's see, April, May, June, July, August, September. So we've got a 6-month stretch now where she has been missing until last week, when some very interesting things happened in this story.
Let's take a quick ad break and we will get into that. Okay, so we are back, and Nigel, please continue with the Aliyah Ramirez story. I'm on pins and needles wanting to know what's going on with it.
So interestingly, this story actually ends up in Florida. So the rumors were true. 2 ladies, Elizabeth Sands and Alyssa Sands, are Aliyah Ramirez's grandmother and aunt. Both were arrested in Florida, where Ramirez was found safe after having gone missing for months earlier this year. Aliyah's father, Anthony Ramirez, was recently granted full custody of her. He told investigators that he suspected from the beginning that the 2 women took the teenager to Florida in a plan to reunite her with her boyfriend.
What?
Now, the grandmother and aunt, according to WANE.com, of Aliyah, Elizabeth Sands and Alyssa Sands, 47 and 25, were actually taken into custody by U.S. Marshals and deputies on warrants out of Kosciuszko County. I don't know where that is. That sounds like an Indiana thing, maybe. Kosciuszko. Good luck spelling it.
Yeah, that's probably an Indiana thing.
The pair arrived to Indiana around 4 a.m. Sunday, and they faced charges of interference with custody, which is a felony, false informing, misdemeanor, and according to Chris Francis, whoever that is, Kosciuszko County Sheriff Public Information Officer. So maybe Kosciuszko County is where Syracuse, Indiana is located. Both were arrested in Florida after the 14-year-old Syracuse girl was found safe in the area of Lake Worth Beach in Palm Beach County. U.S. Marshals reportedly spotted her getting into a vehicle, and Marshals and Palm Beach County deputies recovered her. I think it would be awesome to kind of follow how they tracked her whereabouts and sort of what tips led to her location, because it's been written elsewhere that the way the marshals figured it out is because of a surveillance video that they saw, and then they began monitoring a spot where she was going down here in Florida to eventually take care of it and
again,
go arrest these 2 ladies.
Cannot disappear yourself in this day and age.
I don't think you can. I mean,
no.
there's cameras everywhere.
I know.
I mean, think about all the sensor technology that's on just the average smartphone.
Right.
There's accelerometers and vibration detectors and GPS,
right?
And cameras
exactly.
and microphones. So I guess the best news is that
she's safe.
She's safe. That's the main thing.
That is the best news.
Interestingly, it was 6 months of some kind of romantic thing where they're trying to pull her away from her dad and get her back with her boyfriend.
A 14-year-old.
A 14-year-old.
Oh, my God.
It's understandable that her dad had full custody of her, I guess, based on that. So that's the story of Aliyah Ramirez, now back in her dad's custody at 14, and I wonder what those conversations are like with a teenager.
I don't know. That's so strange.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult. But it
but she's
well.
safe.
She's safe.
You were telling this story, and going through my head is like, was she found dead? Was she trafficked? I'm glad that she's safe and back where she needs to be.
Well, in a manner of speaking, she kind of was trafficked because she was essentially a kidnap victim. She was duped.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right.
Into going out of her custody arrangement as a minor.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So, and who knows what these 2 ladies are even like. There's pictures of them online, and I'm just going to go way out on a limb and say that I wouldn't trust them if I met them. So
you're going to have to send me a picture so I can know what you're talking about.
Yep,
and I'll put it on our social media.
I'll send it to you for the show notes.
Yeah. All right. Moving along. Now, I had asked you to listen to last week's episode of True Crime Headlines only because I'm piggybacking on something that I reported on last week. And I just want to go on record and say that I said something was fishy.
You're talking about Murdaugh?
Yes.
Man, a family of lawyers involved in some... Wait a minute, what rating is this podcast?
It's explicit, so you can say whatever you want.
A powerful family of lawyers involved in state politics, and suddenly some fucked up shit happens, and then some other fucked up shit happens.
And then some more fucked up shit happens. And I just knew when I started in on this, I was like, there is something not right. So we're going to kind of go in a timeline here because... September 10th, which was Friday of last week, Alex Murdaugh's spokesperson says shooting wasn't self-inflicted, shares details of incident.
And as a quick recap, for those just tuning in, Alex Murdaugh is the fella who showed up dead, right?
No, he's not. He wasn't dead.
Oh,
no.
But he was shot.
He was shot.
He's the attorney with the addiction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, a rep for the scandal-ridden South Carolina attorney reached out to People to clear up a number of facts. And I'm doing air quotes right here. Clear up a number of
People
facts.
magazine.
Yes, People magazine.
It's a very serious...
Well, you know what? I gotta just say, like, as far as those magazines go, People, I actually sort of believe some of their
because
stories.
they don't pay for their articles?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
So, a rep for the scandal-ridden South Carolina attorney reached out to People to clear up a number of facts from the day Murdaugh was shot, the latest twist in the powerful family's ongoing saga. When attorney Alex Murdaugh was shot in the head last Saturday on the side of the road in South Carolina, theories about what actually happened and if a still unidentified gunman had really targeted him began swirling.
And he was a terrible shot if he did, right? Like, that was... So when I listened to the show, when I listened to the previous episode, my first thought was, how can you get a gunshot wound to the head and not die or be so effed up that you don't... But somehow this guy did it.
Okay. The day before, the 53-year-old scion of a local legal dynasty had resigned from Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eldroth, and Dietrich, PMPED, the practice his great-grandfather founded a century ago following allegations that he stole money from the firm, the New York Times reported. Mm-hmm. Murdaugh was thrust into the national spotlight in early June after he found his wife, Maggie Murdaugh, age 52, and son, Paul, 22, shot and killed on their Islandton property. On Friday, Amanda Loveday, a spokesperson for Murdaugh, reached out to People to clarify details of Saturday's shooting, saying in an email that it was not a self-inflicted wound. Loveday, of MP Strategy in Columbia, began the email by saying there has been some misreporting regarding Alex Murdaugh and his shooting on September 4th, so we wanted to clear up a number of facts from that day.
This is whose quote is this?
This is Amanda Loveday. She's a spokesperson for Alex Murdaugh.
And so these people are all from South Carolina.
Yes.
So she's like, it might have just been an attempted murder.
I know. That did not escape me that the name is it's
G-H,
Murdaugh, Murdaugh.
It's like Kavanaugh or something like that. But
it's so
Murdaugh.
funny because I'm actually listening to Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil on Audible right now, and that's how they speak, like Murdaugh.
Yeah, kind of very antebellum, sort of almost French-inspired Southern accent. Murdaugh.
So...
Yeah, multiple murder. Anyway.
Loveday, echoing what Jim Griffin, who is Murdaugh's brother-in-law, I think, one of Murdaugh's lawyers, told People last Thursday, the spokesperson wrote, after the shooting, Alex had an entry and exit wound. His skull was fractured, and it was not a self-inflicted bullet wound.
How do you not die?
Hold on, we're getting there. Sharing a few more details about the incident, many of which have been publicly revealed, she wrote, Alex pulled over after seeing a low tire indicator light. A male driver in a blue pickup asked him if he had car troubles. As soon as Alex replied, he was shot. She ended the email by writing, "We know that SLED, S-L-E-D, which I think is South Carolina laws. I'm not 100% sure what SLED is continuing to work diligently to find this person and the person or people that murdered Maggie and Paul Murdaugh." On Thursday, Griffin told people in an email that Murdaugh was bleeding and suffered significant head trauma after getting shot while changing a tire. He was correcting a key detail in the incident report the Hampton County Sheriff's Office released Thursday, last Thursday, that initially indicated that Murdaugh bore no visible injury after the shooting.
Wow.
Later on Thursday,
oh boy, this is ready for trouble in paradise, man.
HCSO sent out a revised report, this time with the box beside visible injury checked off. The words "other major injury" were added next to the visible injury.
Oh boy.
The first report also said that Alex was not using alcohol or drugs at the time of the incident. The revised report said it was unknown whether Alex was using alcohol or drugs. In an email to People Thursday, Griffin wrote, "I understand that the sheriff has clarified this no visible sign of injury entry in some reports." He continued saying, "In any event, when the deputies arrived, Alex Murdaugh was not at the scene. He was picked up by a good Samaritan who drove him toward the hospital. They ultimately met up with an ambulance on the highway where he was examined, and because of the extent of his injuries, an EMT called for him to be airlifted to the hospital. He had significant head trauma, and there was blood at the scene, which is indicated by the evidence cones placed in the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that most of the cones mark blood." This is so whacked.
Yeah, it's whacked because this is the follow-up story now,
yes,
right?
But I'm not even done.
How bad do you have to be at reporting to miss all this shit the first time around?
I know, and I'm not even done. I have so much to say about this. And last week I said, this is not right. There is something fishy.
I need to get my tinfoil hat.
Yes.
I mean, I actually keep one of those. I have a tinfoil helmet. Yes.
That doesn't surprise me at all. I presume that the deputy checked the no visible sign of injury on the incident report because he was not able to assess Alex since Alex had left the scene before the deputy arrived.
That's fair. So he wasn't observing him in person.
Right. Griffin also said that Murdaugh's injuries were far more serious than was initially reported. Confirming what he told the Island Packet last Thursday, Griffin told people that Alex suffered an entry and exit wound, a skull fracture, and minor brain bleeding in 2 places. He also said that the gunshot
wound... Is there such a thing as minor brain bleeding?
I don't know.
I mean, wow.
If your brain is bleeding, that's not a minor thing.
Yeah, right. Who do you have to be to categorize brain bleeding of any kind as minor?
I'm just reading.
Okay.
This is not me. This is not my research.
Okay, all right.
So he also said that the gunshot was not self-inflicted. The HCSO sent people the initial report and the updated report. Hampton County Sheriff T.C. Smalls did not immediately respond to people's requests for comment. The Island Packet spoke to Smalls, who said the box was likely checked in error. He did have an injury.
Killing me, Smalls.
He did have an injury, Smalls told the paper. You're making me laugh, and this is but this is crazy.
Yes, indeed.
That probably was a mistake, likely caused by a computer error. The rest of the brief. Okay. This is rolling off the edge at this point. I know. And I called this shit last week. I said there is something absolutely not right.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not even gotten into the bulk of this.
And the guy's name is T.C. Smalls. Do we even want to guess at what TC stands for? I know this is not supposed to be a humor podcast that I'm aware of. But this is, okay. So
when it comes to this case, it's just so whacked. You can't help but kind of laugh a little bit.
Yes, indeed.
So on Monday, after being released from the hospital where Murdaugh was treated for, quote, a superficial gunshot wound to the head. So it was a superficial gunshot wound to the head that also had an entry and exit wound and a fractured skull and brain bleeding.
The guy's dead. That's what I'm getting out of that. Okay, he did not survive, but you're going to tell me something else, aren't you?
He announced that he was resigning from his law firm and would be undergoing treatment for addiction. As authorities investigate Saturday's shooting, they continue to search for a motive and a suspect or suspects in the killing of Maggie and Paul. Now, we cannot forget that back in June, his wife and son were murdered.
Yeah.
Okay, so
this is what makes it really intriguing, because it's not just some one-off about a guy that has a personal problem. There is other shit going on with this family.
Totally, yes. So, I'm not a doctor, but this is fishy as fuck. His brother stated that Murdaugh had an entry and exit wound, a skull fracture, a minor brain bleeding in 2 places, yet he's out of the hospital and off to rehab in less than 48 hours. Why come out and push that narrative that the gunshot was not self-inflicted? Was there ever a question? And if so, I must have missed it, because
so is the guy, let's say that the self-inflicted gunshot wound is somehow beneficial in his mind. He's like, I'm gonna make it look like I was shot by somebody, right? First of all, how do you carry off a self-inflicted to the head gunshot wound and
not even succeed,
and not kill yourself, and it's only minor, except there's some broken bone and some head. I mean, it kind of does make sense, because let's say he was just fucking off and he was gonna put a gun to his own head, but try to make it look like somebody else did it. Okay, and so now you've accidentally blown off a portion of your skull. Your brain has bleeding in 2 places, and somehow you have missed by 2.5 degrees, and therefore but yet he survived.
Right.
And he's out of the hospital like that.
Yeah, none of this makes sense. This is insanity.
Yeah.
And who's this good Samaritan that picked him up and was driving him down the highway?
Yeah. Can I get CIA?
So this next article on the same subject is from September 14th. South Carolina lawyer Alex Murdaugh accused of arranging his own shooting and $10 million life insurance scheme.
Wow.
I knew it. I knew there was something right.
Is this Ken's somebody disappearing himself story?
No.
Okay. All right.
No. So South Carolina lawyer Alex Murdaugh arranged for another man to kill him earlier this month so that his son, his other son, not the one that's dead, would collect on a $10 million life insurance policy, authorities said on Tuesday.
No. So he hired a hit on himself?
Yes.
Okay.
Apparently, his other son, Richard, is named Richard Alexander, a.k.a. Buster Murdaugh Jr., So
that makes sense.
Murdaugh, 53, survived the September 4th shooting, which happened months after the unsolved slaying of his wife and his other son.
Oh, boy.
Police say that Murdaugh told 911 that he was shot in the head while changing a flat tire, and that the shooting caused only superficial wounds. So what was it? Was it superficial, or did he fracture his skull and make his brain bleed? I don't understand.
I'd like to go back to the motive. There seems to be a connection, you were killed while doing this. You were killed while changing a flat tire. How dare you change a flat tire? Did he expect that was going to be acceptable? As a cover story for it?
I do not know. On Tuesday, Curtis Edward Smith, age 61, was arrested on assisted suicide and fraud counts in connection to the roadside incident, according to South Carolina's State Law Enforcement Division, which is SLED.
SLED, yes.
There we go. We figured that out.
Carolina, yes.
South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division. Documents released by the agency say Murdaugh admitted that he asked Smith to kill him so that a beneficiary could collect on his life insurance policy.
It's the most altruistic suicide ever. Like, what?
Murdaugh, who is part of a prominent South Carolina legal family, has not been charged in any crime. Mind you, remember, this article is from the 14th of September. His attorney, Richard Harpootlian, declined to comment late Tuesday. The roadside shooting happened almost 3 months after Murdaugh's wife and adult son were found shot to death on the family's hunting property in rural Islandton on June 7th.
All right, when anybody dies on your own family's hunting property, I mean, isn't that like kind of like a Dick Cheney thing? Like, man, he accidentally shot somebody on it. I mean, that's sketchy AF.
I don't know.
This is getting curiouser.
See?
And curiouser.
See?
Yes.
Okay, so days after the September 4th shooting, Murdaugh said in a statement that he resigned from his job at the law firm to enter rehab. He said he made a lot of decisions that I truly regret, and that the murders of his wife and son have caused an incredibly difficult period in his life. The law firm said that Murdaugh resigned only after the partners discovered that he had allegedly misappropriated funds. On Monday, South Carolina law officials announced that it was looking into accusations that Murdaugh misappropriated money from the firm, and his law license was indefinitely suspended.
So if he was an addict, let's say he was doing, I mean, what's in vogue right now? Painkillers, right?
That's always been in vogue.
So,
but I actually think it is opioids was his thing.
Okay, so, and you can blow 6-digit money on opioids in a year if you're highly functional, from what I understand. And that would be a reason to steal money from your source of income, wouldn't it? Especially if you had privileged access to that money.
It is a little funny that this is happening because as I know a lot of my Paradise After Dark listeners know, but I don't know if my True Crime Headline listeners know that I, in my past life, was a paralegal. And I worked at a law firm for about 6 years. And we did have a woman who worked with us who was buying, I think it wasn't opioids, it was like benzodiazepines.
Yeah,
she was an addict.
Antidepressants, anti-anxiety, Xanax, that kind of stuff.
Yes, Xanax, Valium, whatever it was. She was an addict, and she was stealing money from the firm, and she got caught, obviously, and she was fired. And then when we went back and searched through everything, she had stolen over $32,000 to buy these drugs. She was buying them from like the dark web, and she was having them shipped to the law firm. Mm-hmm. She didn't want them shipped to her home because she didn't want to get caught, whatever the case may be.
It's interesting though. Somebody would notice at home, so ship it to a law firm.
Yeah. Well, nobody. That's the crazy thing is nobody noticed. Well, I mean, we all knew she was like an addict.
Well, was she the person who was generally first to get to the mailbox anyway?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense then. Yeah.
So Murdaugh's law license was indefinitely suspended. Smith has been charged with assisted suicide, assault and battery.
Curtis? This is the Curtis guy, right?
Is it Curtis Smith?
Curtis something. Curtis
Edward Smith.
Yes.
Been charged with assisted suicide, assault and battery of a high aggravated nature.
Assisted suicide is a crime?
Apparently so.
Okay.
In South Carolina, anyway.
All right.
Pointing and presenting a firearm, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud.
Wow.
It is said that Smith...
Talk about protecting the big money.
It is said that Smith of Walterboro was also arrested on charges of methamphetamine and possession of marijuana. I'm not surprised on that.
Ooh.
Not at all.
Let's go ahead and throw that in the article because we got to get to 600 words. Possession of marijuana. We're almost there.
Murdaugh allegedly gave Smith a gun and directed Smith to kill him, according to documents released by investigators on Tuesday. Murdaugh allegedly admitted to the law enforcement agency that the plan was for Smith to kill him so that Murdaugh's surviving son could collect a life insurance policy worth approximately $10 million.
Does Smith suck at firing a pistol?
Apparently so, because damn.
Okay, so you're point blank. Right.
And this guy has a big head. If you see his picture, he's got a big head.
He's got a big dome. And the guy is presumably standing right there with the gun, right there, and somehow still manages to not. There's something more to this. Do these guys control any media in South Carolina?
I don't know.
Something's
Maybe
going on. This
do.
is weird.
Okay, and here it is, folks. This is the most recent news story as of this recording. Alex Murdaugh is in custody, charged with insurance fraud and filing a false police report. So Alex Murdaugh has been arrested and charged in connection with the alleged botched suicide for hire plot he hatched to claim a $10 million life insurance payout for his son.
So Curtis plea bargained is what I'm reading out of that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. On Thursday, agents of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division arrested Murdaugh, 53, of Islandton in connection with a shooting incident September 4th in which he conspired with Curtis Edward Smith to assist him in committing suicide for the explicit purpose of allowing a beneficiary to collect life insurance.
It is the weirdest, most altruistic suicide motive.
It's so weird.
Yeah, this might be a first, actually. There's something more to this.
So Murdaugh was charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false report. He was booked into the Hampton County Detention Center, which had requested the investigation. The case will be prosecuted by the Attorney General's office. Attorneys for Murdaugh did not immediately respond to People's request for comment. Murdaugh's attorneys had issued a statement on Wednesday saying they learned of the warrant of his arrest and he planned to voluntarily surrender on Thursday.
So if you're Murdaugh, like, okay, you work for the most prestigious firm in South Carolina. You're in this heir family, and they even use the word scion. They managed to work the word scion into that report. And
right,
like,
yes, absolutely.
So invoked, like, let's figure out how to use the word scion in this. So the guy, like, he's a big deal, right? His family's a big deal. They're attorneys. They control a tremendous amount of political power.
And think about the location, South Carolina. Think about, like...
Oh, it's blue blood, for sure. It's old-fashioned. So this guy, he gets in big, big trouble. And then the phrase that you read was Murdaugh's attorneys. Who the fuck did he hire? Like, what attorney was like, yeah, I'll take that case, man?
Good question. He probably hired his cousin or something. I don't know. They're all lawyers.
Yeah, I wonder what firm it is. Like, that would be interesting because it's so political with
I
law.
wish, the difference between other states and Florida is that Florida has a sunshine law where all of that would be public record. I could go to the clerk of court's office. I could find out who the attorney was. I could find everything. I don't know what South Carolina's laws are, but I will be looking.
Interesting. Okay.
One more real quick. Murdaugh murders. Judge grants Alex Murdaugh $20,000 bond. No GPS monitoring.
It seems like it's pretty low.
In his home court of Hampton County, Alex Murdaugh, who is a person of interest in the recent murders of his wife and son. Now, he's a person of interest in the recent murders of his wife and son.
Was that never reported before?
No, this is the first time I've seen that.
What outlet is this?
I thought that...
It's from a newspaper, or...
It is from, I shall tell you.
It's got to be a local. It's got to be a local.
It's got to be a local...
Because that's something
Fitsnews.com. FITSNEWS.
Oh, that sounds like an indie.
Fitsnews.com.
It's crazy. So all along, and this is going back months and months now, this guy has apparently been on the radar of law enforcement as a potential murderer of his family.
Maybe. Well, you know what? And last week when I first reported on this, I'm literally in my head, I didn't say it out loud, but I'm like, he probably killed his family. That's what I'm going with. I'm sorry. I'm putting it out there. That's what I'm going with. He was granted a $20,000 personal recognizance bond after he was charged with 3 felonies in the alleged suicide for hire insurance fraud scheme.
Can I ask you something real quick? Because former paralegal,
Sure.
personal recognizance means that you're going to write a check right then and there, right? Like,
No, personal recognizance means that they're going to allow him out and trust
that he's good for $20,000.
that he he has to pay the bond,
Okay.
but they're going to trust that he's not going to run.
Okay.
Or whatever the case may be.
So he did write the check, and they're just
he bonded himself out.
okay, $20,000.
But
Wow, okay.
personal recognizance basically means that he's in charge of himself.
So this guy,
There's no
they think he
probation.
murdered 2 people.
Yes.
And you're like, man, $20,000, you're a big time attorney. It'll be all right.
So Tanya,
After you tried to disappear yourself, it'll be okay.
Tanya Alexander, a Hampton County magistrate judge, set Murdaugh's bond under the conditions he give up his passport and immediately go back to rehab. If Murdaugh leaves the rehab facility without the court's permission, a bench order will be issued for his arrest.
Okay, that's more like it.
Yeah, so that makes a little bit more sense. Creighton Waters, a prosecutor at the South Carolina Attorney General's office, argued that bond should be much higher, $100,000 surety, which means he actually has to pay the money, unlike personal recognizance, because Alex Murdaugh should be considered a danger to the community. He also asked that Murdaugh have to wear a GPS monitor, but the judge denied this request. However, Dick Harpulitin, Murdaugh's high-powered attorney, argued...
Oh, this is the attorney then. The guy with the weird name from the beginning.
Yes. Argued that his client is not a danger to the community, but only a danger to himself.
Okay.
So
there is so much
so by
more
next
stuff going
week, I'm so interested to see how this plays out. There's definitely going to be more by next week.
So Harpulitin is the guy that defends a defendant from the most powerful law family in South Carolina, ostensibly.
Right.
At least from where we're sitting in Naples, Florida, it looks like this family has a lot of power.
Right.
And so whatever his name is, he's defending this guy and saying that, he's not really a danger, but he may be suicidal.
Yeah. Well, he's a danger to himself. All right, let's take one quick ad break, last one, and then we'll be back. And we are back. Nigel, what you got for me?
Well, I've got a story about Florida man, the most amazing criminal of all time.
Florida man.
In this one from Newsweek, it says, Florida man shoots grandmother, claims to have, quote, killed the devil.
Grandma was the devil. Okay.
This one's a couple weeks old, but it was written by Thomas Kaika, so I know it's legit. It says, a Florida man was arrested on Thursday after attempting to kill his grandmother, according to police. In an official statement, the Polk County Sheriff's Department, the famous Polk County Sheriff's Department,
Grady
confirmed...
Judd.
Yes.
Love me some Grady Judd.
How is he going to become like the attorney general or something? I guess he can't be an attorney, but he could eventually become some kind of famous law enforcement personality.
Maybe.
I guess he already is, though, right?
Yeah, he kind of is.
So Polk County Sheriff's Office confirmed that Byron Quintez Dexter had been taken into custody for shooting his grandmother, Annie Parrish, in the neck with a .22. Speaking to investigators later, the 21-year-old said various odd things about his actions, including, quote, I killed a black queen, so I won the game, and, quote, I killed the devil. About 6:45, he comes out of his bedroom with a semi-automatic handgun. This is Grady Judd talking now. Points it at his 16-year-old sister and says, what's going on? In response, the sister gathered up several younger children in their Polk County home and moved away. Dexter then turned and opened fire on Parrish, right in front of all of them, apparently, who had been sitting at a table nearby and immediately fled. Quote, his mother was in the room and heard the commotion. Grady Judd said that. Again, quote, she got into the room just in time to see Byron fleeing out of the home, gun in hand. Parrish was flown via helicopter to Tampa General Hospital. She survived the shooting, but was reported to be in critical condition. A bullet had become lodged in her spine, but she had not been paralyzed. Dexter was later found by police riding his bike on Highway 37 and arrested. The handgun was still in his possession, and he was taken into custody. I mean, is that what you do, though? You shoot somebody, and then you go...
Ride your bike?
I'm just going to keep the murder weapon and go ride my bike. Like,
I'm sensing some sort of psychotic break.
Something happened.
Something must have happened, because...
Or he was ill for a long time, and he finally got to the point where there was a coping bomb that went off psychologically. So it says he now faces charges of attempted first-degree murder, aggravated assault with a weapon, carrying a concealed firearm, and shooting into/in an occupied dwelling. So I guess you can't shoot inside a building?
Well, that is a Florida law. Like that there's an actual statute for shooting inside an occupied dwelling.
Like unrelated. Somebody comes in, you have a problem with them. You draw a weapon, they're fighting you, you shoot them inside your home, and that's a legal issue at that point, right? You have to put them outside on the lawn, outside your house, and then shoot them?
You're going to get it. We can't go down that road because that's just going to be a really long conversation.
Okay, all right. But it's a fair thing to say, though, right?
It is. There's also shooting into an unoccupied dwelling, as if like there was like a house that nobody was in and you shoot at it. That's a different statute.
So there's a law for everything?
Oh, yes.
That advantages certain people at a certain time.
Right. Yep.
All right. So Grady Judd explained that Dexter did not have any criminal history before this incident, but he did have a history of mental health problems.
That's what I just said.
His family had previously attempted to get him admitted to a mental hospital for treatment, but Dexter refused. Polk County is located in Central Florida, and yada, yada, yada. Everybody just look up Polk County if you want the most entertaining Sheriff's Department YouTube videos of all time.
Polk County, Grady Judd.
Grady Judd.
I am a proud owner of property in Polk County.
Well, there you go.
And if shit hits the fan, that's where we're going.
And Grady's got you.
Grady's got. Okay. Moving right along.
Grady has a little bit of political power. You know what? I love the way he lambastes some of his some of these guys that get away with shit in his county. Like
he gives zero fucks.
Yes.
If there was a bucket of fucks, Grady Judd would dump that bucket on the ground and hand it to you.
He kind of basks in it too, though. Like he's kind of like, you know what? I know what I got. Like at this point, he's been through so many of these crazy things over by Tampa.
Polk County is like weird shit happens in Polk County.
Yeah. Kind of like the Bermuda Triangle.
It is of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Polk County is the Bermuda Triangle of Florida.
As we're in the estates talking.
Yeah, we're out in the boondocks right now.
What did you call it? The pad?
The pad. The Paradise After Dark pad. The pad. Indeed.
So I was impressed when I walked in. I looked around and I saw all of the various items that you've gathered from different trade shows that you've been to. You've got CrimeCon 2019, CrimeCon 2021.
There was no 2020. That's the only reason we don't have that.
2020 doesn't exist.
Yes. The pad. Okay, and now for the story of the week. This has been, I think, on everyone's radar. It's made national news. I can't get on any social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. Everybody is talking about this. Northport woman vanishes while on road trip with boyfriend. And again, the news is fluid, so I'm going to be reading you these news reports, and more comes out as the week progresses. So Northport, Florida. Police are searching for a Northport woman originally from New York who disappeared on a cross-country van trip with her boyfriend. The Suffolk County Police Department on Long Island is investigating the disappearance of 22-year-old Gabrielle, aka Gabby Petito, who was reported missing by her family on September 11th, just before 7 p.m. Police said the pair, Gabby and her boyfriend, were traveling in a white 2012 Ford Transit van that has since been recovered in Northport, Florida, according to the Northport Police Department. We currently have no definitive information that a crime took place here in Northport, they said in a statement. With that said, the circumstances are odd. Petito is described as 5 foot 5 inches tall, 110 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes. She also has several tattoos, including one on her finger and one on her forearm that reads, "Let it be," police said. The family told police they were last in contact with Petito during the last week of August. They said Petito is believed to have been at Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. The 22-year-old and her boyfriend of 2 years, Brian Laundrie, were on what the couple described as a van life journey in a YouTube video that documented the pair's travels. Petito and her boyfriend moved from Blue Point, New York to Northport, Florida 2 years ago before setting off on a cross-country trip in the beginning of July. Family members said they noticed the 22-year-old's Instagram posts slowing down toward the end of August, around the same time they lost communication with her. The Suffolk County Police Department is asking anyone with information on Petito's whereabouts to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-220-TIPS, TIPS. The Northport Police Department and the FBI Tampa Field Office are assisting with the investigation. Tips can also be submitted to 1-800-CALL-FBI or submitted to tips.fbi.gov. But I've got more on this. Boyfriend of missing Long Island native issued statement through lawyer. The boyfriend of 22-year-old Gabby Petito has issued a statement through his lawyer. Brian Laundrie's attorney, Steve Bertolino, issued a statement on the disappearance of Gabby Petito. This is an extremely difficult time for both the Petito family and the Laundrie family. I understand that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. On behalf of the Laundrie family, it is our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful and that Miss Petito is reunited with her family. On the advice of counsel, the Laundrie family is remaining in the background at this juncture and will have no further comment. Prior to the last communication, Petito is believed to have been in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, as I just said earlier. The van was recovered in Florida. So the boyfriend drove the van back to Florida. He arrived home in Northport, Florida on September 1st without his fiancée, who had been living there in Northport, Florida with him and his parents for 2 years. Like, I wonder what kind of excuse, like, where's Gabby?
You know, that's interesting because they went on this cross-country journey. They had I believe, a YouTube channel called Van Life.
Yes.
And I think we're attempting to capitalize on that channel. They went way out west from Northport to Moab.
Yeah.
And actually became involved in a RV life co-op known as Moonflower. A Moonflower co-op, which is I'm just assuming that means a campground. You know, okay. It's a fancy word, co-op.
I'm not big on camping or anything. I think you're more versed in that type of thing than I am.
So I've driven around the country in a camper, and I've been driven around with others in a camper and kind of lived in a co-op lifestyle. And so this is real stuff, especially when you get really, really out west. There is a co-op out there called Moonflower Co-op where apparently the Petito Petito and is it Laundry or Laundry? Laundry.
I read it as Laundry.
Yep. So they were together at this co-op, and apparently there was a domestic incident, a physical domestic incident involving the two of them shortly before his return trip home.
Right.
Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, actually, I have this here in my notes. Now, as we know, as I've said like 3 times already, the news is fluid, changing every day. And the latest thing I have on this story from today, and right now we're recording this on Thursday evening, police video shows emotional Gabby Petito before vanishing. This comes from Fox29WFLX.com. Police in Utah have released body cam video that shows an interaction that they had with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie in August, about a month before she disappeared. The video was recorded August 12th by Moab Police Department following a call reporting a domestic incident between the couple. It shows police pull over the couple's white van near Arches National Park after they were involved in an argument that became physical. Laundrie had scratches on his face.
Interesting chronology, though. Why would they pull over the van without any prior knowledge of this incident?
Apparently, somebody else had called in. They were somewhere, I think, at some sort of campground or something. There was a physical altercation. And I don't know this to be fact, but from what I've read, Gabby was slapping him and he pushed her away. And somebody called the police. Apparently they got in their van, they were leaving, and then they got pulled over.
Okay.
So
they, despite having a physical altercation, they got in their van together and then left together.
Right.
Because that makes sense.
Laundrie had scratches on his face and arm in the video, which he told police occurred after they had the altercation. Petito is noticeably emotional and crying for much of the video, which is more than an hour long.
The body cam video.
The body cam video, yes. The body cam video release of police interaction with Gabby and Brian. During the interview with police, the Florida woman tells the officers that she has a lot of anxiety and stress. Laundrie told police that he and Petito had issues that were building after traveling together for 4 to 5 months, creating an emotional strain and a number of arguments. The report said Petito was slapping Laundrie, and he grabbed her face and pushed her away while trying to lock her out of the van, but she got inside.
I wonder what was said before that, though. I mean, these things are like... So there's like this macro progression of things that build up and build up and build up in domestic disputes, and they're never addressed until something boils over.
Right.
But there's also this sort of what was said like right before. If she's grabbing his face, what did he say right before she grabbed his face?
She's slapping and scratching his face, and he grabbed her face.
Okay, so, but what was said? Like, what triggered, if there's slapping and scratching? How do you get that pissed off?
I don't know. I've never slapped and scratched.
So that's the missing,
someone.
that's the testimonial gap. So what the police reported upon taking their report, either they didn't remember what happened right before, or they're choosing not to disclose what happened right before.
Well, if you watch the body cam footage, which I did today, and it's also going to be in the show notes, there is a link to the news article, and it does have the body cam footage within that news article. She does say that she's a little OCD and she was in a bad mood because the van was messy. She was trying to clean up the van and he was getting annoyed with her.
It also seems so superficial relative to what actually happened.
I understand.
I mean, how do you get that pissed? Like, maybe you're like, fuck, we're in a van and we're in Moab, and what the fuck happened to our life? Like, maybe they're having this like moment where they're all
right. Totally. That totally could. I mean, that's what I would be thinking in that situation.
I mean, we're from Northport. It's like the lowest property value in Southwest Florida. And you've got me in a van out in the middle of nowhere. Like,
so after evaluating the totality of the circumstances, I do not believe the situation escalated to the level of a domestic assault as much as that of a mental health crisis, the police report said. Following the interaction with police, the couple told officers that they were in love and didn't want anyone charged. Police ended up getting Laundrie a hotel room for that night so they could spend some time apart for their mental health.
That's pretty nice Utah police people out there.
Right?
And pretty gentle.
Petito maintained possession of the van that night. Laundrie later returned to his home in Northport, Florida with the van on September 1st without Petito, prompting her family to report her missing on September 11th. So
she was released by police custody with their means of transport and their home.
Yes.
While on the road. And the next thing we know, this guy's back 3,000 miles away in Florida. And she's gone.
Nowhere to be found.
Yikes. So
it's... in my heart of hearts, I'm praying that he left her somewhere without a phone, or that she's.
This is a month ago, though. I mean, this is mid-August by this point.
I know. It doesn't look good. It really doesn't.
So why is this guy not... So they've called him a person of interest. I mean, duh. But why is he not named as a suspect?
He is named as a suspect or a person of interest.
So Northport can pick up the phone and call Grand Teton in Utah or whatever, Moab, wherever it was, and say, hey, listen, what do you have? Because we have some shit. Does he have a rap sheet? I mean, was he pretty clean before this, or...
That I don't know. That is something that I can look into for next week's episode.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, they're very young.
Yes.
And probably pretty idealistic and probably very passionate, because young people are pretty passionate if they're on YouTube and they're doing van life. It's because
if you're going to get in a van and drive across the country with somebody, you better be pretty passionate about them.
Yep. Or just passionate about the adventure.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe there was a moment where somebody was like, this isn't what I really want to do. Because that's a big change, especially if you're only used to one modality of living.
Yeah.
Or if you're an East Coaster, like you go out to a place like Utah and you see there's deserts and formations and all this stuff. I mean, like it can be, it's shocking to what you're accustomed to, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, but certainly I hope that Gabby's okay. And I hope this kid is not at fault. I really do.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to be following it. Whatever comes out, I will be updating next week.
Probably not going to get the Moonflower Co-op as a sponsor.
Maybe not, but that's okay. It's more important that we put out the accurate information about Gabby. Mm-hmm. And I just hope maybe that she's somewhere.
You know, there is this sort of trend they were in a national park, and there's a lot of weird shit that goes on in national parks.
Yes, you are correct. I did cross my mind.
And I don't want to like go full conspiracy theory, but and
that's
again,
sort of your shindig.
It is my shindig, but and again, I mean, if you've got if you have a situation where a couple is already having domestic issues and they're laying hands on each other and they're pissed, you don't really need to go any further in terms of a motive. And like you have pretty much one investigation to do at that point. Like you can rule out almost everything else, which makes this one a lot less complex than the earlier one about Murdaugh. Because that situation has...
Murdaugh is just nuts.
Yeah, it's like a big maze. This one's a little more straightforward, and as much as I don't want it to be because they're young, and I don't want it to be this typical story of, a young guy, doing something really stupid and flushing 2 lives down the toilet, because it's not just her. As eventually, if they get him, it's going to be him
his
too.
Life.
And so they're acting, passionately and youthfully, as they did when they decided to make a YouTube channel and go out and do their thing. at least with the Murdaugh case, it's like there's a lot more heads to be scratched in that one.
Yes.
So
that's another one I'm going to be following.
Oh, man, this could go forever.
I know. All right. Well, I think we should wrap this up. Nigel, thank you so much for helping me with this week. This week has been sort of a literally nuts news week. And again, anyone who would like to support the show, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALAMAHAWK Media. And
Palmahawk. Yes. Which I think is some sort of like weapon thrown by the hand.
Well, it's a tomahawk. That's also a palm tree. If you look at our logo, it's a tomahawk. That's also a palm tree.
Oh, I'm in the studio right now. I'm looking at the logo on the wall. Palmahawk. Bloody Palmahawk.
It is bloody. One of our fans actually drew that for us, and we loved it so much. We actually got permission from the artist. She's an actual artist. Her name's Karen Welsh. She's on Instagram. And we got permission from her to use it and have it as our own, and that's where that came from.
Well, that's awesome. Big time shout out, Karen Welsh. I happen to own a Palmahawk Media Paradise After Dark sticker.
Do you?
That I have presented proudly front and center in my place of business. And if you'd like to reach me, I'm Nigel Kent, Nigel Kent 239 on Twitter, and Tipcast 239 on Twitter if you'd like to follow my podcasts, which are Trouble in Paradise, which is about conspiracy theories, and also my new podcast, Big Tech Watchdog, which is about calling out the censors in the big technocracy.
Yes, and I think that at some point in the near future, I may be joining Nigel on Big Tech Watchdog.
And maybe on Trouble in Paradise.
Maybe on Trouble in Paradise.
We might bring you all the way over.
Can I just get all up in your business?
You may need to edit this, but we may bring you over to full. I mean, it gets a little crazy. Once you start running the math, that equation never really ends. So.
All right, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And everyone, thank you for listening to True Crime Headlines. I will talk at you next week.
Ken's the founder.
And I'll keep reporting as long as it's safe to do so.
Dude.
Okay, first of all, I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room.
I'm going to turn now to that new charge for the so-called doomsday mom, Lori Vallow. Already charged in the killing of her 2 children, she is now being indicted for conspiracy to commit murder.
A violation of Penal Code Section 187 Prene, murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Guilty.